And I want to welcome everyone to today's webinar, Role-Playing Culture Shock in Higher Education Classrooms. In these very interactive sessions, we are going to explore what culture shock means, understand high and low context communication, and learn about key culture differences. We'll also see how having many cultures in one classroom makes learning better and more fun. So we'll share simple ideas. Dr. Adanka is here to share with us simple ideas to help your students feel more confident when interacting in diverse groups. So today's session is led by one of our core faculty team leads, a faculty senate member, and a dedicated faculty member from the College of Business, Dr. Tatiana Adrienko-Janin. At the end of the webinar, I'll share a link in the chat where you can request your attendance certificate and provide feedback about today's session. So we're excited to have everyone here. So Dr. Adrienko, take it away.
Thank you so much. Thank you for this great introduction. And I'm really happy to be with you today, to see you all today. I'm greeting you from sunny Florida. I'm teaching. I have already had my class here, and I'm going to have another one in the afternoon. I am, thank you for this great introduction, Eve. I am professor of Westcliff University, IRB member. I have a doctorate in linguistics and another in intercultural communication and an MBA. I am teaching intercultural communication and business communication, rhetoric and public address, a number of courses. But what is very important, I'm enjoying connecting with diverse faculty, with diverse students in the classrooms. I know their approaches, I know what we may be facing, and I'm sure each of us has similar experiences. So I want to start this session with you today, which is to highlight how role-playing cultural shocks may help us develop global leaders, because that is what I expect our students are going to be in the world. They are going to lead our world to be a better place. The presentation that I'm sharing with you now is based on my actual teaching of executive and global MBA students in Silicon Valley in California, very close to you. And it was presented at the conference of the Association for Business Communication, and it's going to be published in Business and Professional Communications Quarterly, probably very soon. So I'm sharing my findings with you. And to set the stage, I will tell you where the idea comes from. One of the founding fathers of intercultural communication, Geert Hofstede, the author of Six Dimension Theory of Culture, which I will briefly introduce to you today, said, "Studying culture without experiencing culture shock is like practicing swimming without experiencing water." This is, we want our professors and of course our students to know more about cultures, but of course our professors first, because they are setting the stage for our students. Can we learn about them without experiencing culture shocks? Seems like we cannot, right? But on the one hand, we think of culture shock as something bad. If it is happening, on the other hand, it is something we can learn from. So let's have a closer look at it in our today's session. But before we go to the session, I will briefly introduce what we are trying to achieve here, our learning objectives: recognizing common culture shocks in higher education setting, applying role-play techniques to explore diverse perspectives. Actually, I have prepared a couple of role-playing scenarios, which I will share with you, developing strategies to foster inclusive and globally competent classrooms, and enhancing our leadership by managing cross-cultural interactions, and thus setting the stage, setting the example for our students to become global leaders. As we are getting started, we will first go to introductions and icebreakers. And in the rest of the session, I will briefly introduce you to two major theories, just to describe how vast the cultural differences are, what is cultural shock, and we will go to probably role-playing, probably just discussing the scenarios. That will be my shock therapy with you, okay? So thank you once again for being here. And may I ask you to write in chat just briefly your name to introduce yourself, where you are from. If you are in the United States, maybe you have a background you are coming from. My background is from Ukraine, although I am here totally with you. I was born and raised in Ukraine, and that gives me a lot of insights, and I traveled the world. I worked in Turkey for some time and in Egypt and some other countries. Yeah, so while introducing yourself, also please share whether there was one moment that surprised you or challenged your expectations in a diverse classroom. Please write in chat to everyone so that everyone can see what you are writing. And that will be our brief introduction, just the name, where you are or what your background is, and a brief situation where there was misunderstanding or something that challenged your expectations in a diverse classroom. And then I will have a brief quiz for you. So while warming up, while sharing your ideas, please get ready for a brief quiz. I will give you some time to write in chat. Or if someone wants to say, please use this time to say. While the others are writing, I don't limit you to writing only. If there's someone who wants to speak up and say what you are, where you're from, and any
Okay, I want
challenge.
to say something, Tatiana. I
Yes.
mean, we're thinking of culture shock as something that happens outside our countries. But
Mhm.
in my country, we've got different groups. And, when I was teaching back in the university in Turkey, um, there were, more and more people coming with headscarves. So this became like a trend. At the beginning, really, it was like a culture shock to me because I was not expecting such students. It's girls, of course, wearing a hijab. You wouldn't understand how men are, but they have a different viewpoint upon life, a religious perceived. But is it religious or political? I don't know. But I had to respect them. I had to include them, and well, I had to listen to them, first of all, because that was a culture that I was not. I know about religion a little bit. I am on paper, I am Muslim, but I'm not a practicing Muslim doing everything. So they are different, and their view upon the world is completely different. So this was something I had to solve. It was not a culture shock, but it was a challenge for me. So, I just wanted to say thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing. And besides just discussing what you discussed, you noted an interesting thing. Sometimes seeing that a person looks different, we expect them to be very, very different from us, behave differently, react differently.
Yeah.
That may not always be the case, but
Right.
that is somehow our perception, our prediction that the person will be very different in their views because they are very different in
Right.
how they self-express, right? That may be wearing a hijab, that may be
Bias,
having a
right?
lot of tattoos in the country where tattoos are not common, that may be dyeing your hair in some color which seems normal to you, and in a conservative country they will look at it as something, that person is not one of us, that's a strange person. And that will be
Yeah.
those micro culture shocks which unfortunately may turn into microaggressions, and we don't want them to happen. So thank you very much for sharing. It
Thank
is
you.
just showing us what may be there for us. Yeah, and I thank all of you for sharing. And as I look through your challenges, many of them are the same as happened to me. Language proficiency, we may speak the same language, but English is a world language. The same is about Spanish, and even the same word may mean different things, and people will lack understanding, right? Or, for example, yeah, thanks, Jody, for that. And Elena shares that students found it problematic to do reflection assignments, right? That actually what happened to me as well. They just could not make sense. Why do we need to write? Is it a part of that research paper? No, but why should we write on how we did it? Who cares how I came to the conclusions, how I worked on research? I just did it. Okay, there is in their academic environment, this was not the case. Metacognition was not something that was widely considered. And facing the new situation, they think maybe I'm stupid or what's not working, right? We will look at that stage of culture shock. And you are right, Selma, that it doesn't occur only when people are traveling. It may occur in the same country as well. Good. Thank you very much, Bindu, for introducing yourself, right? And it's very interesting what you're writing. So selecting right words may be a challenge, right? If you would like to exemplify specifically, just say it. We will value that. Okay, just that our words mean a lot, right? You may write or say as you choose. Thank you, Johnny. I didn't know you're from Argentina, and and what you are describing is pretty interesting, right? Unfortunately, conflicts exist whether cultural or not, right? Good. Situation with athletes, of course, is also it was very unusual for me. Thank you, Joanne. Yeah, in many countries, if you want to go in for sports, it's just your your preference, your choice. Nobody cares. Here, I agree that students who are athletes are enrolled in the best universities, and they look at it as something of a great benefit that they are doing sports. I was an athlete myself. I was not entitled to anything. Rather, the professors were unhappy when I went for competitions on behalf of the university. I had to compensate, and very severely for that. So, Dr. Johnson, your shock came just 2 days ago with a random question. So, what was it? Would you like to share more?
Yeah, I try to emphasize the differences and the good and bad within cultures. And one of the things I use as an example is like I would ask a student what would happen. And again, we're not talking about medical problems, but what would happen if grandma was sick? Who would you stay with? And they would say grandma would stay with me in a heartbeat. Where in the US we tend to shove people, they'll be happier in an old folks home. And there's a few questions I ask, and I've been getting the same answers for years. And but the one question I asked, I said, for instance, how many of you would leave your husband or fiance for a man who made more money? All of them but one said they would. That's the first time I've ever had that answer out there. It was shocking. It was just shocking to hear that because I've never had that answer. I've asked that question. Again, it's a collection of questions to show cultural differences, but that one shocked me.
I think it also shows the change of differences over time, right? Because I will be introducing you to theories that can compare cultures worldwide, but you will notice that they are not always the same. So it's just good to know about them. And thank you very much. Yeah, that's a very valuable insight. Thank you. And finally, thank you, Claudia, for sharing. I think you will be a great asset for us because you have already developed a strategy for working with students, and that's fantastic. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's a great thing. I know from students who are like they are from Hispanic backgrounds and they meet and people who speak the same language but they may be culturally so different that, for example, one of my students I think from Colombia, she kept hugging and kissing her teammates whenever she came to work, and she was reported for sexual harassment. She said she never meant anything bad. She was just very friendly. She loved that workplace so much. She wanted to be with them. And when she behaved in a friendly manner, which was normal in her country, For them, it was like sexual harassment. And she was very disappointed because she was shocked. She did not know what to do. She was doing things which seemed very right to her, to build a connection with her team. And that is what happened. So we are going to talk more, and I would appreciate your examples later as we share. But now just a brief and I think an easy test. Just write in chat and we will see how it works. In which country it is rude to make direct eye contact with an authority figure, which may be a professor, university administrator, or any other authority figure. But in our situation, it may be just your professor. In Germany, Japan, Brazil, or Canada. What do you think? Write in chat. I see I'm receiving answers. And yeah, and answer more. I don't see answers from all, but all the answers are correct. Japan, right, that's about Japan. And now a little bit more complicated question. Which of the following would likely be seen as an inappropriate classroom behavior in some cultures? We do not specify which, just in some cultures, one or another. Calling a professor by their first name. The second one, arriving 5 minutes late to class. Asking a professor personal questions. And all of the above. Make your choice and write it in chat. Yeah, I see some answers, and again, they are all correct. All of the above, right? For example, while in Miami, coming 15 or 30 minutes later to class may be a norm, they will say it's Miami time. But in Germany, for example, that will not work, and in many other countries as well. And the professor just say, I am not allowing you to enter the classroom. Yeah, good. So this is just for us to see how diverse the classrooms are. And as our university is so international, it unites students from more than 107 countries, if I am still in time, maybe even more. That was the last number I heard. From more than 100 countries, definitely we will be exposed to different cultures. So what we are facing when we are facing different cultures? I will just briefly overview two major theories, and one of them is the theory of high context and low context cultures, which is about how they communicate. And this bases off the concept of context. Context is the shared background knowledge that we rely on in communication. That is, if we have a lot of shared knowledge, which happens in societies which stay together for a long time, are not very dynamic, we don't need to say everything in words. We may just hint, or we see how a person behaves, and that gives us the meaning. Those are called high context cultures. They use a lot of context. And if the society is mobile and dynamic, like the one in the United States, people just do not have shared knowledge to rely upon. And we cannot use context, and that is what's called low context cultures. It is a spectrum. It is not a picture in black and white. And here is just as examples for you how the cultures are spread, with low context being here on the left, and Swiss, German, and German, I honestly don't know the difference. This is a borrowed graphic, and Scandinavian being most low context, but American, that's the most low context that I know, is on the low context spectrum. While some other countries, cultures that you may know, Mexican, Greek, Arab, I think Turkish will be somewhere on this spectrum too. Japanese, extremely high context. It's the culture in which silence speaks, or how a person is seated, how a person moves, makes a meaning. Just not giving an answer is already an answer. That's a feature of high context culture. It is very implicit. It is reliant on rules. And if you don't know the rules, you will feel like a person who enters a movie theater in the middle of the movie. You understand what people are saying. You don't understand what's going on. And on the other hand, the low context culture, that's an American culture when everything is explicit, everything is said in text, everything is communicated step by step and very clearly. They say when you need to communicate to people, first you say what you're going to say, then you say it, then you say what you have said. That's introduction, body, conclusion, structure, you know it. And I add, and then you follow up by an email, because nobody will still remember everything. That's the realities of our life. Just as a comparison, when a person enrolls in the university here in the United States, they go first to what? Orientation, right? They are provided with a number of resources that will help them. When we start a class, we usually introduce the students to the syllabus and resources, right? That's their low culture, our low culture, low context culture of communication. As a comparison, in Ukraine, where I grew, when a student comes to the university, they need to find their way themselves, where everything is, where their class will be. Nobody introduces you to the syllabus. You may go and find it, but that's your problem. You just come to the lecture and everybody expects that you already know what to do. And the same in the workplace. Once you joined it, you have your diploma, you know how to teach. Nobody will be training you. That's a feature of different cultures. And of course, they raise different expectations. And I thank you for sharing. If you would like to add that someone named Learning, you may add a couple of words if you wish, and we will go to the next slide, or just the people may read a comment in chat. It's very good, and thank you very much for adding. I am glad you are connected. And I will just go briefly through another theory. Actually, it's the major theory of cultures based on almost 100 countries, which shows just how diverse our cultures are. It's the 6-dimension theory that I mentioned in the beginning. And I will just very briefly describe each dimension as it may pertain to the classroom. Power distance is how people expect each member of the society to have more or less power over the others. In high power distance cultures, people believe that someone may have more power than them. The teacher is God in their class. Whatever the teacher says, the students need to do. The same about administrator and people, for example, working under them. In this situation, students sometimes will not venture an opinion or will not confront the teacher's opinion. And they expect that the right opinion is coming from the teacher. If the teacher says something, you cannot debate over it. They may be really lost in the discussions. They are not used to opposing one another. But on the other hand, they are very good students. Whatever you say, they will do it because they are used to obeying. Individualism versus collectivism is how a person sees themselves as a self-reliant and self-responsible individual, or a person of the team who stands for their team. This means that students with more individual mindset will try to do things their way. When I am describing an assignment, some students will ask, can you provide an example? And I understand that most likely those are people with collectivist mindset. The way people do in the society is the right way to do. And even when I show the example, my American students will usually do it their way, because yes, it's an example, it's the way somebody does, but I will do it my way. It's me, I am doing it. The students with collectivist mindset, we expect them to be more engaged in team work. That may work, but on the other hand, they may not know how to distribute responsibilities because they are just used to being a harmonious whole. Interestingly, whatever they do, they believe that it represents the entire class. So they will be ashamed before the class if they do something wrong. And that's another hurdle for them to speak up in class. They are afraid to be ashamed. If they do something wrong, their class disagrees with it. They sometimes take disagreement very personally because they are used to harmony with those they are working with. Masculinity versus femininity are actually confusing terms because there are more. Masculinity about success and achievement in your work, in your career, versus femininity, the harmony of life, work-life balance, the family, the personal relations. I think that is what Dr. Johnson faced in his classroom, right? That the society turned out to be very, actually the theorists, I think, have changed the name, orientation towards success. For the society to achieve success, for the students to achieve success in the society may be more meaningful than to achieve family harmony, which I say we people of the older generation still believe is the main asset, and whatever achievement you are making in your workplace, it still matters what family you have at home, right? We are doing everything to be good with our family, but that's not all the same. That may vary, and we should know this is especially meaningful. What motivates students, what motivates people in the workplace? If they are towards success, like masculinity, they will be motivated by a higher grade, by being appointed the leader of the team, by promotion, or just completing their course successfully and being recommended for an internship, for example. While people with the femininity or family-like or harmonious mindset will more strive to build good relationships with their team, or have more free time, or do, for example, study abroad, where they will go and explore with other people. That is, they are not so much about the grade, they are more about the experience. You now notice how diverse people may be in our classrooms. Yeah. Now, uncertainty avoidance, that is how we address change. In the United States, change is viewed as something very positive. It is an opportunity. It is a chance. When you grab it, you succeed. That's very good. In other countries, uncertainty is something people are fearful of, and they are called uncertainty avoidant. Actually, this dimension was I would say it was discovered. It was discovered through analysis and statistical processing. When in France, while the company was IBM was restructuring its operations, there was a series of suicides. People did not lose their jobs. Nothing happened. They were going through the training, but they cannot handle the change. They didn't know what's going to happen, and that made them like. They cause them severe psychological distress. So in our classrooms, we also may have students who will be happy to do something new, and we may have students who will feel very stressed over the assignment they have never done before, like that reflection assignment or metacognitive reflection. The student actually who complained about that, he came from India, and I saw on his face that he was severely distressed. He was the best student throughout his student's career, and now he sees an assignment that he absolutely does not understand what to do. What is going to happen? Will I get a negative grade for it? Or what will be if I do it this or another way? So people who need predictability versus people who are okay with taking chances. That's what uncertainty avoidance may be in our classroom. Finally, two last assignments, dimensions were created when the researcher team looked at the great boost of economies in the East, and they saw some predictors of economic growth in those cultures, and this is how they shaped. But let's see how they work in our student classroom. Long versus short-term orientation means whether people care more about what's happening now or they are investing in the future. For many of our students, education is their investment. Even if they are not doing it easily, if the course is not a pleasant one, but they need it for the future career, they will do it, and they will do it the best they can. They know they are working for the future. On the other hand, some students will be just doing the things because they enjoy them. That's motivation by the activity itself. Because we have diverse students, I love including both pleasant and interesting activities and activities which stimulate, or questions which stimulate the students to connect this course with the future. What are they actually doing when they are learning this course? What they are doing for their future career? That's the last but one dimension. And the very last, indulgence versus restraint, is how we demonstrate our feelings and emotions. Indulgent cultures emphasize positive emotions, and that's very strongly about the United States. That's, for example, we have finished the first week. Congratulations. We are starting the second week. Let's celebrate, right? Whatever we have done, congratulations, great job. I'm proud of you. That's the way of emphasizing positive emotions as the movement towards further progress, further achievement. That is what motivates people. While restrained cultures, people like feel shy of feeling very good, and they will rather complain and criticize than celebrate and praise. For example, my country of origin, Ukraine, is #1 on the restrained spectrum, and the most difficult thing for me to teach students, would you guess was what? The most difficult thing to teach students in a communication class, what might that be? Your ideas. You may just unmute and say whatever. It's not a test. It's just what might be the most difficult thing to teach students in a communication class. Okay, Selma, venture an opinion. What do you
I mean,
think?
how could they have done all the time, constantly praising them? Is it the difficult thing?
We do praise them, at least in the language classes, we learn to praise the students. Yeah, and you're very close to it. Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Good. I will give a prompt. That was in a hospitality institution. That is actually what brought me to Turkey. It's our great partner in hospitality. Yeah. No, I thought it was, yeah, what? Well, I see. That's just a chat. I appreciate that. Any other opinions? Okay, I will tell you. Actually, there were two things. One was to teach them to smile. Can you imagine you enter a hotel and people at the reception stand like with these faces? Because we are very serious people. We take our job seriously. We are not here to joke, and they are staying like with very serious and concentrated faces. That's the normal look for them when they are doing something very serious. And the second difficult job was to teach them to respond to hi, how are you? When we say hi, how are you? Everybody says, fine, good, not bad, how are you? If you ask a Ukrainian student, hi, how are you? We are so sad, we are so bad, everything is so terrible. The weather was horrible. We were like stuck on the train. We are very ill. We are very tired, although it's 8 o'clock in the morning and so on. People start complaining and say, hey, this is a greeting. You just respond fine. I say, fine, how are you? That is, you know how bad we are, but you make us tell it wrong. That's actually, people really feel that this is what it is, and nothing bad was actually happening. They were young, healthy, well-groomed students. Everything was good with them, but that is a habit. Not saying I am good when I am actually good. That's just a representation how the students, some may celebrate when there's actually nothing to celebrate. Others may complain while there's nothing to complain of. It's just how they grew in their society. But we have them all in our classroom, and we need to make this classroom inclusive. Inclusive, that means that everybody feels valued, welcome, and understood, right? Does that always happen? Unfortunately not. And here is, while confronting people with very different features, we may be exposed to something that is culture shock. So culture shock is more about communication. It's not about the country being very different, although sometimes it may be connected with food or something else, but mostly about communication. So what is culture shock? First of all, not all people feel it. Some 20 lucky percent don't have it at all, while changing the environment, moving to another country, another region, or while another, for example, big group immigrates to your locality, they are still maybe causing culture shocks, but not all people experience it. Some 20% don't have it at all, but some between 40 to 60% may have severe culture shocks. And severe shocks are not only psychological. Here from Dictionary of Psychology, it's described as loneliness, anxiety, confusion, and distress caused by experienced by individuals or even groups when they encounter different or unfamiliar cultural environment. But actually, it may all even go into a physiological state, like people may have disturbed sleep patterns. They may have disrupted behaviors, decreased productivity. Here is our student sleeping in the middle of the day because they could not sleep at night because something is worrying them. They don't understand what's going on. poor time management, and even personality changes. We may observe that the student who was nice, engaged, communicating openly in the beginning may then suddenly become isolated, unresponsive, and we need to understand that something is going on. Yeah, Dr. Jones, you think that, yeah, in the United States, many still experience culture shock, but it's easy to forget that, right? Possibly. I think partially it is because people are more focused on positive than on the negative, and that helps them survive better. So still,
There's a visual component to it as well.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas is that you could be from a different neighborhood, let's just say, and yeah, I grew up at a very I went to a what they call minority school back in the 1970s, so I went to Davis, where it was almost all white. I had not lived with that many white people before. I had a very thick street accent. I was very embarrassed about my speech. I was very, so a lot of things you're showing, I went through the same thing. I didn't speak much because I was embarrassed. And so from the language context, even though I spoke English per se, I didn't talk much. And I know a lot of, again, foreign students are similar because they have the two elements of vocabulary, meaning that, and I talk about this in class, where I can give you a book, no problem. You can read anything, but their vocabulary is smaller. So they're reading vocabulary versus their speaking vocabulary. And that a lot of them, that's what inhibits them speaking, because not that they don't understand what they're hearing, but their vocabulary is limited. And some of them are good. They're, for lack of a better term, they're a little bit embarrassed that they don't think they can contribute. They don't know if they're going to say the right words. So that can happen here in the US, but the same thing. It's the same problem of self-efficacy with regard to being able to communicate, and all those symptoms, everything you're describing there would apply for the same.
Good. Thank you very much. Right. Yes, it's very good that you emphasized it once again, that culture shock is not only experienced with, that is, you don't need to be from a foreign country, from another country to experience culture shock. You may experience it in the United States, but I would say probably you've even experienced it more acutely because within your country, you expect to be understanding and understood. When people come to a foreign country, they obviously prepare themselves somehow to face something that is different. But in your country, you expect to be still in your country, and sometimes that expectation is broken, right? So let us look at culture shock now a bit more closely, whether it's something good or it's something bad. What do you think? Actually, it's good and bad. What do you think of it? Here is, I borrowed this graphic of emotional stages, emotional state of culture, or while you're experiencing culture shock, because it says months in a new country, but it does not divide it into months, because that's pretty subjective. It may be several months, it may be a year, or up to 5 years, they say. So, and the first stage is usually very positive. It's called honeymoon. Dr. Johnson, that's the one who survived culture shock. Did you feel something like that? Wow, everything is fantastic, a new place, everything is beautiful. Obviously, you change for a new place because you think it is a better place, right?
Yeah, I knew there would be challenges to that. I would say my parallels to that was when I was in Tonga, on that, because I had to learn, they gave me a book and I had to learn Tongan well enough in 6 weeks so I can teach in Tongan. So there are different, again, speech anxiety, not the people, but the ability to communicate. So I could understand even in that context exactly what students are going through, reading and so forth, and having a comprehension of certain things. But our ability to communicate is where the anxiety comes in, and all those things. Yes, the anxiety, the adjustment, and so forth. As I got more fluent, and I can be more communicative, and everything changes when you feel that other people understand what you're trying to say, and you're able to communicate that. I completely get it. And our students are amazing. I mean, they speak so many speak 3, 4, 5 languages, but there's still a comfort with, some, even though they speak it, some are still not comfortable with it. And if you're not comfortable, you're not going to express yourself. So it's not even a matter of the skill itself. It's the comfort with the skill they have. And we have, and when you combine all the things that you've been mentioning in the cultural context, that's what makes all that adds everything together. I mean, everything is a compilation of that.
Yeah, good. Thank you very much. Right. You actually described the entire curve that we are going through, right? That is, in a new country, usually you start with admiring everything. Everything is fantastic. And that shows that your mood is up at this moment, right? But then we observe it's going down, and that's where the anxiety comes in. Why the anxiety comes in? You notice that familiar practices do not work. This is what we call decomposition of codes. That is, you had certain behavioral codes. You knew that, for example, while greeting a person, you hug and kiss them. That's normal. You do it in the new society and they complain of you, or they stay away of you, or they try to distance of you. You don't understand. Are you an unpleasant person? What's not working? Why are they keeping you away? The thing is that practices are different in their country. And it may be with language, it may be with nonverbal behaviors, it may be with how people study. For example, they are used to listening to the lecture, taking notes and reporting back to the professor. They try to do it in the new situation, and professor says, no, you do not need to repeat what I have said. You should come up with something new. So am I a bad student? Am I stupid? Why I've always done like that? It worked, and now it doesn't work. Actually, this is where the mood of the student may be most down. They may grow irritated. They may become rude, although they are not rude people, because something does not work. I cannot understand what am I doing wrong. I'm doing something wrong, but I cannot understand it. And they may start blaming themselves, or they may get easily out of it if they contact others, ask questions. What did I do wrong? Why it did not work? And then they gradually develop a new code, a new way of behaving. This is where we see the mood is going terminally down, but still then going up to the stage of adjustment. And the adjustment is developing the new ways to behave, the new ways to do assignments, the new ways to behave with people. For example, if people stand closer in that society, you first feel uncomfortable, but gradually you become comfortable talking with them at a distance where they usually communicate. If, for example, the society does not allow just to copy the textbook, and that is my best work I can do, you gradually understand that I need to build off the textbook, but I will always have to add my opinion, interpretation, and everything. And gradually you come to acceptance, or we may say accommodation stage, or it may be the stage where a person assimilates with the society and just interacts smoothly as one of the many. Of course, kids go easiest through this because they do not have firm-shaped familiar practices. They are learning, and they are learning easier. The students who are adults, we have a lot of adults. Sometimes I have people with a PhD degree in my classroom. Of course, they have very firmly embedded practices, and becoming flexible may be more difficult for them than for the others. So we need to adjust somehow. How do we need it? Oh, how can we do it? Of course, there are multiple ways, but for me, the one that I am going to share is the one that is playful and interesting, and that will be, of course, our role plays, to which we will come a little bit later. Now, there is something I want to demonstrate to you. That will be a brief cultural shock, but in this case, you will tell me who is shocked, the professor or the students. That will be a classroom situation in this around 2-minute video. And I hope by exposing ourselves to cultural shocks, we will be able to better understand different perspectives on the same situation. So let's watch the video, and I will expect you to give advice in this situation and maybe more. Let me click on it. It will start showing you the video, hopefully. Do you see the video now or not?
No.
No? Okay, I will reshare. Just a second. I will.
Roger TV is a creative studio,
It's doing
and
something
Slack Connect has
else.
definitely helped us grow and get more business. We're directly communicating on a shared channel with our
I will will skip the end.
Okay, what else?
Yeah. I will share and make sure we are sharing with the sound. I don't see where it says now share with the sound. Oh, yeah, share sound on another field. Yeah. I hope you see the video now, right? Professor and students in classroom. Yeah, only if you don't hear the sound, make me some signal.
Okay, what else? Yes, man meat. I do not understand item H403. H403. Yeah, a lot of Americans wear these to sporting events. But why so? It's hard to explain. We just do. Yes.
I don't understand the purpose of A221.
A221. That's a burger brand. Americans eat a lot of beef, and some people like to burn their initials into their food with a red-hot iron before they eat it.
Why?
It's like a cattle brand. You know, the thing you use to burn a symbol into a cow with? No, in America, that's how you keep track of your cow, is branding.
With a red hot iron?
Yeah.
But wouldn't the cow run away?
Oh, no, we only do it to baby cows. When they're, you know, small enough to hold them down. Yes, Asha?
A suggestion, Mr. Todd.
Go ahead.
You need to learn about India.
I will stop it here for you. I saw very expressive reactions on the screen. Would you like to comment, as we agreed, whatever advice you would give to that professor? Samaya, go ahead.
Well, I laughed a lot. I mean, we know that in India, cows are sacred, right? So they are religious symbols and they're untouchable. And so this professor, unfortunately, hasn't read much about the culture and, you know, just saying things that are going to hurt the people. I mean, maybe he shouldn't use those examples, or if he's going to use them, use it in a different way. I mean, he's really shocking the people. I even was shocked, you know, baby cows, you go and stamp them. Is this correct?
Yeah, right. By the
Oh my
way,
God.
I'm not sure whether all Americans are doing it. I think in a way he's misrepresenting American culture to the world.
Well, that's another thing, you know,
Yeah, yeah.
and that's terrible, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. What you felt actually was cultural shock. That is, you were shocked. I think most of the viewers were shocked by what was going on, and obviously the students in the classroom also were. For us, it is, of course, a hint that the course content that we are selecting for the students may carry different cultural messages. They may be normal for one culture, but they may be absolutely shocking for another. So we need to adjust the course content. We want to make it varied. We want to make it diverse, but still we need to think of any possible perceptions that the students may have as a result. Thank you very much. And I just saw that Dr. Johnson posted something that has found a lot of acclaim, so please go and read that in chat. That's amazing. Thank you so much. I appreciate your engagement. Yeah, that professor got your advice already. So let's look at some more scenarios. And here again, I would appreciate if you briefly talk through these, what you would do in such situations. You may just comment on what the students are feeling and why, and whether there is a way a professor can find a way out of that. And in the end, hopefully we can go through them, but I have prepared a couple of role-playing scenarios that you will probably try in your classroom. So let's go through these in around 3 or 4 minutes, and we will have a couple of minutes of those. So read the first scenario and say what's going on and how we can help in this situation. During a discussion, Tonya openly and clearly criticizes Mickey's presentation, which is, for example, normal in Ukraine. You don't praise a person, you start off criticizing what was wrong. And that leaves Mickey from Japan confused and discouraged. What happens and how we can help? Any ideas are appreciated. Dr. Johnson, I see that you are unmuted. Please go ahead, and other colleagues, please get engaged too.
Oh.
Okay. Can anybody venture a solution? It doesn't need to be a correct solution, just what you would do or why you think that is happening. Any comment on this situation will be appreciated.
Probably not a lot of prep. And from my say with that is, it'd be different if the professor beforehand, like before, just by the way, you guys are going to do your presentations and we're going to critique it. So be prepared for a critique in class and so forth. And that way that we're doing it for this reason. And then people wouldn't, I don't think it would be taken the same way, because it would be and it would have been expressed beforehand of what's coming. And I get the impression, like in the first one, that Mickey was caught off guard more than anything else, because like, why are you doing this? Versus, by the way, we're going to be critiquing it. So here, and she gets a critique, that whole element of why am I being critiqued? Well, it was answered beforehand. So I just thought that we have to do a really good job before things are done as far as explanations, so that we try to get everybody on the same page. The assumption that they'll understand is where a lot of that comes to problems.
Good. Thank you very much. Thank you. We'll appreciate more comments here, and please read comments in chat. They are also available. Go ahead, Sema.
Yeah, I mean, the teacher could give a criteria before Tonya gives the presentation and ask the students, maybe in groups, to tick, what are the good things that he has done? I mean, according to the criteria, what are the bad things that Mickey has done? So later on, they just discuss it as a whole class. I mean, instead of Tonya going and criticizing, maybe Mickey thinks that this is an insult to him and different, I mean, coming from a different culture, maybe he's not used to this. So he feels very, very bad and put on the spotlight, So there may be ways to deal with this. Still, the same thing is done, but in a nicer way.
Good. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. And I hear that both of you agreed that the professor had two models, the way the feedback should be shared.
Right.
Because we observed the clash of values here. In one culture, it's good to share where the room for improvement is, and you need to state it clearly for the person to understand. In another culture, Mickey expects harmony in communication, and what is good is said, what is not mentioned, obviously that was not very good. That's where improvement needs to be done. So I would support your decision that this needs to be, that is the way of giving feedback needs to be modeled by the professor. Good. Thank you very much. We have 7 minutes to go. So let's just briefly look at two other scenarios. In a global politics class, the student from China remains silent when the students are asked to compare pros and cons of different political systems. Why can you guess? Why do you think? China obviously has a very different political system, and the student, if the student criticizes it, he disagrees with his own community. If he praises it, he disagrees with the class in the United States, where it's considered not the best political system. So he has only to disagree with one group of people or the other. But the student is not used to openly expressing disagreement. This is the situation our students may be facing in discussions. Disagreement in their culture means something very negative. They are not used to disagreeing. Good, thank you. And I have a group projects for you to analyze yet. But if I see the time is telling us to go faster, let me show you the role play scenarios and ask you whether something, that's why they work good, because the students try themselves in an absolutely different capacity. And this is one of the scenarios for you to look at. I thought we might probably work through them, but is there anything that may work in your classroom? Or they might teach you something interesting. Here is one situation. Mohammed from United Arab Emirates expects preferential treatment at the university because his brother studied here and maybe still studied here. In his culture, it is normal to give preference to returning or continued clients, while an enrollment advisor has to explain that we are equal opportunity institutions and nobody can be given preference. But still you need to enroll that student. You want the student to go with you. If you have a solution, if you have ideas to go, yeah, I see great ideas in chat, so please look through them. They are really good solutions. And thank you, I appreciate you sharing. Any opinions? I think we should be on this side of enrollment advisor. What can you do? Let me see, I see something in chat. Oh, that's about the previous question as yet, but thank you for communicating. Okay, maybe you will respond to this one later. Let me show you another one. That will be about professor and student situation. I'm sure here you will say something very valuable. Here, a student from Taiwan is not active in discussions because she needs to take time to think everything through very carefully, maybe to research and only then answer. But in discussions, she is expected to answer spontaneously, and she doesn't venture to speak. She is afraid that that will be a shallow opinion. She doesn't want to do that. While her professor is giving her low participation grades to stimulate her to speak more actively. I think that's something that happens when the student is not participating. We are not giving them the full grade. Any solution here? Any ideas? I'm afraid I will need to wrap it up. So if you could write something in chat or just say something last minute, what would you do to invite the student to be more active?
Maybe have a word with her outside of class.
Okay.
Or
Yes.
I would maybe
You would? Can you say it again?
the student
The voice was breaking. I'm afraid we didn't hear it clearly. Could you say it again, please?
before the class session, students before class about the question.
Oh, yeah, familiarize the student with questions before the class session. Perfect. We have another idea here in chat. As for me, I would ask the student to submit a written assignment if she needs thinking time. So there are solutions. Thank you very much. I just tried to model possible classroom situations in these scenarios. Here are our learning outcomes, and thank you very much for being here. I hope we will be able to share the PowerPoint in case you have you want to look close at these situations. And thank you very, very much for your attention.
Thank you so much, Dr. Adrienken, for being here today, for facilitating this wonderful, exciting, and super interesting webinar. It's so interesting how when we talk about culture, there's so much to say. And we realize that culture plays a major role when it comes to dynamics in the classroom. and how understanding we need to be and how educated we need to be about these issues to be able to provide our students with the best possible learning experience. So thank you so much, everyone, for attending today's session. Dr. Adenko for facilitating this webinar. I would love to hear from you what you think about this session. Please take a moment to fill out the form, the survey that I just posted on the chat. And if you need a certificate of attendance, request is there. I will send the slides and the recording once ready in the next PD2 newsletter. Thanks everyone for everything. Thank you, Dr.
And thank you very
again.
much for sharing your insights. You are fantastic and your ideas are invaluable. Thank you very much for being here and making this happen. Thank you.
Wonderful.
And thanks a lot, Eva, the Light Center. I do love you and appreciate you. Thank you very much.
We love you too. Thank you so much for always being willing to help.